I would like to call to order this meeting of the United City Select Board. John,
Yes.
present, Kathy here, and Brian.
Here.
Jeff Delaney is not here at the moment. Are there any public comments on non-agenda items? Jeff Delaney is just arrived.
Thank you. See it.
Okay, fine. The chairman's, there is no chairman's report. Scott? Is there anything that we need to add or subtract from the action items? Don't have anything that's the point.
Are we gonna get regular updates with regard to Desmond?
That I'm a liaison to the board of health.
Okay, so we will.
You will get,
Thank you.
in the liaison section, I will let you know what's going on with Desmond.
So that's covered.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I would like to hand the gavel around because I am involved in this next discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, the first agenda item here is joint meeting with the Harbor Advisory Committee and trustees on marine mooring and mooring program discussion with all of you and with town council, etc. So, a couple of ground rules before we start this. I would like to confine the comments really to the Manchester mooring issues. In other words, I don't want really comments that are coming down dealing with, say, the broader mooring wait list or other issues that are certainly involved with the harbor, but aren't directly related with the topics that are on the agenda here. There'll probably be a number of comments. Going to limit them to 3 minutes, more than you get a town meeting, which has been 2, according to Alan, but we'll make it 3. If so, I suggest that you certainly put your most cogent points up front first. I think Brian will kind of have a clock and
3 minutes long.
let you know as far as you go. So that's fine. And as the discussion progresses, I would appreciate it if people would confine their comments to those which add something to the testimony that has been provided. Possibly go over the same stuff again and again. It's kind of time consuming. It doesn't really add anything to the discussion. And we'll start off. There'll be a few folks that will make some comments, and then we'll go to general comments and then comments from the select board. So with that, I will ask Tony perhaps to provide some general background about this particular concern. Yes.
Since I brought this issue up,
Mhm.
and in the meeting minutes from our previous meeting, I said specifically that I wanted to talk about the Manchester Marine moorings. So I am not prepared to talk about the provisional mooring program or anything other than the 10 mooring permits that were issued to me.
Well, the program is on the agenda, of course, and I think the discussion to get any kind of progress, really that has to be part of the picture. It's integral to the whole mooring concerns that are here because it represents a possible solution and further input there. So I think that it really has to be part of the discussion. Maybe not necessarily central, but it certainly needs to be part of the discussion. So I think we're gonna include that.
I don't think we're gonna deliberate on the elements of the provisional mooring program. In other words, opening up those, the rules of the provisional mooring program to talk about a different way to do them. We're not getting into that. More so just referencing it as part of the process.
Good. All right. Other comments?
Just recognize that the Harbor Advisory Committee is is here or members of the Harbor Advisory Committee is here with us. I don't know if they have.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Is there a quorum? Has there been a notice of meeting?
We noticed it as a meeting. There's a forum here. Is there?
3 so far.
Philip Leahy present.
We have 4. We have 4.
This is within this community. We have already.
Just say that the meeting is open. Just announce that your meeting is open, your joint meeting is open.
Yeah, the Harbor Advisory Committee Chairman Carl Doan, the meeting in conjunction with the selectmen, we are co-meeting on this evening.
Great, thank you. So I will ask Tony for some opening remarks. He's been researching this topic rather extensively over the last few weeks. And I will make an exception with Tony, the clock is off.
I'll try to stay quick, keep it quick. Well, I'd like to start by saying that I have only been looking into this issue for about the past 3 weeks. And I'm attempting to report the information that I have been provided without any bias. If I'm incorrect on any of the facts or the timeline, I believe there is a sufficient representation of folks here that can correct me on any of those items. I'll start by providing a brief overview of the timeline and relevant information factoring into the decisions that were made. I'll then ask Alan Pike, our harbor master, to provide input and focus on the decisions that were made regarding the Manchester Marine moorings. And after Bion, Michelle Randazzo of KP Law, counsel, can provide information regarding the legal perspective on this topic and highlight the roles and responsibilities of the officials that may or may not be involved. First, I'm glad we're having this discussion because I believe it is our duty as town officials to address this topic publicly. It is imperative that we provide faith in the operation of our harbor and the process that our harbor master performs. And at a minimum, regardless of any findings, it's important that we show the public that we are responsible in the way that we address any potential issues brought to our attention. This topic of the Manchester Marine moorings can be split into 2 separate categories. How Manchester Marine came about, 10 additional moorings, and how those moorings would be regulated through the provisional mooring program thereafter. So I'll start with how Manchester Marine came about 10 additional moorings. The catalyst for this was a proposed slip expansion project proposed by Manchester Marine, dating back to sometime in December of 2021 or January of 2022. In your packet that I provided you before the meeting, there's some before and after photos of the mooring field adjacent to Manchester Marine for your reference. Through this proposed slip expansion project, the need to change the 10 existing single point moorings across from Manchester Marine to secure vessels / floats in a linear orientation parallel to and wholly outside of the channel was introduced. And that language I get from a DEP letter that had here. Dated March. Highlighted. Manchester Marine's proposed project included the conversion of these single point moorings. And they completed a lengthy public process locally and with the Commonwealth. This included meetings with our Conservation Commission starting in July of 2022, our Planning Board starting in October of 2022, our Harbor Advisory Committee starting in November of 2022, and the DEP and Army Corps of Engineers starting in January of 2023. Their Army Corps permit was issued in September of 2023, and their draft Chapter 91 license from DEP was issued in March of 2024. And in April of 2024, their new mooring floats were installed. I go through that process because I think due to the significant two-year public process surrounding the proposed project of the slip expansion, which included the conversion of single-point moorings to, as DEP states in the letter, multiple bottom anchor systems to provide for mooring connections at both the bow and stern of each vessel / float. I can say confidently that this project and the possibility of 10 new mooring spots was well known. For the sake of providing faith to the public about the harbor operations, I think it's important to dispel any potential thoughts that Manchester Marine was provided 10 new mooring spots all of a sudden. It was part of a two-year process joined with this proposal to expand their slips. Also, based on the information provided to me, I think it is important to be clear that we are talking about 10 of the 12 single-point commercial moorings that Manchester Marine has held, from my understanding, since about the 1940s. These 10 moorings, through the proposed project, were then required by DEP to be converted to multiple bottom anchor systems to provide for mooring connections at both the bow and stern of each vessel and float. That is to say, the 10 new moorings that were created feature 10 new spots on the new floats as a result of the conversion required by DEP. Category 2, provisional mooring program. In April of 2024, when the new floats were installed, discussions regarding the harbor rules and regulations began with the Harbor Advisory Committee. Prior to this, yard moorings, commercial moorings, per the rules and regulations, that were only for service or transient use being 14 days or less. However, I did come across information that claims yard moorings for seasonal use existed prior to 2010 as well. So there was a period in time from 2010 until 2024 when seasonal use was prohibited by the rules and regs. Discussions with the Harbor Advisory Committee and the Select Board regarding a provisional mooring program to allow for some of the new spots to be used as seasonal rentals occurred in multiple meetings from April 2024 to February of 2025. So it is possible that seasonal users of the new spots in the 2024 season did not come from the recreational wait list because the new program wasn't installed until early 2025. When the provisional mooring program began in 2025, boaters were selected from the wait list. However, the initial process of that resulted in spots not being filled due to the wait list being exhausted. There were, in February of 2025, there was a meeting with the Select Board where the Harbor Master provided an update and stated that there were other folks on the wait list willing to take these seasonal spots. However, they hadn't been on the wait list for more than a year at that time. Then I believe the 1 year requirement on the wait list was waived. And then all of the spots were filled with folks who came from the wait list. And in your packet, I provided a copy of the seasonal users from 2025 on these moorings and a copy of the wait list highlighting where they were in the wait list. So that's my overview of facts. So, Alan, if you could maybe talk a little bit about the decision process regarding the 10 additional moorings.
Sure, so,
And correct me if I was incorrect.
I think we're pretty strong. As far as the conversion of the 10 existing locations, DEP was very clear that must happen in order for Manchester Marine to move forward with the licensing of the fingers on their floats. So we actually had DEP in town. They were not sure what the project and the parameters and the issues. So DEP actually came to Manchester and we took them out on the harbor master boat. Manchester Marine, we looked at the existing single point moorings. We had some historical satellite photos of the vessels on the moorings trailing off towards Manchester Marine, the restriction of the channel. DEP immediately said, well, this restriction of the channel is a problem. We're only going to permit this with bow and stern. And I asked the question, is it bow and stern for vessels only, or can Manchester Marine put floats in there? DEP had no issue with that. They put it in the March of 24 letter prior to the issuance of the license. If you look at your copies, there will be the second page that I highlighted here, where they make it very clear vessels or floats. So there are not 10 new locations. These are the 10 original locations, taking up less room because they don't swing. So with a float, there is room for a vessel on each side. So I certainly didn't have a problem with that. We'd accomplished what we needed to accomplish to make the harbor safer and to reduce the amount of room used by Manchester Marine with this new bow and stern float system, and arrived to where we are today.
Michelle?
Thanks, folks. Michelle Randazzo from Town Council Office. So I first got involved with this probably somewhere in toward the end of 2024 and calling for questions. And one of the things that I've been tasked with over these past several months is to really look at who is the appropriate authority to issue regulations vis-a-vis moorings. And, you know, I've gone through 25, 30 years plus of opinions from our office to various of our local communities. And, you know, I never want to tell folks that you don't have sort of, you know, the authority, the select board doesn't have authority to adopt rules and regulations under their normal police powers. But in my opinion, it's very clear that the statutes confer the authority to promulgate regulations with regards to temporary moorings on the harbor master. And that is not something that is appealable to the select board. Those decisions are appealable to DEP. And I can go through chapter and verse and I have to explain my opinion, but I want you all to know that I did not go into this thinking that that was going to be the end result. We really looked very closely because we do have a wealth of information from, you know, like I said, decades of looking at this issue. And I probably looked at some prior opinions to former harbor masters. But the statute is clear that where you have a harbor master, and as you know, you have a bylaw that expressly states that some board makes a harbor master, that is the local official that regulates. And whether it says that he or she or they promulgate regulations, they regulate movement of vessels through the harbor. Obviously, all these things need to be consistent with any Chapter 91 licensing, with the harbor plan, requirements of the Army Corps of Engineers. You know, they're never generally in a vacuum. But from a legal perspective, this is, you know, if I went through all of the existing harbor regulations, I'd probably check off that most of them fall under the harbor master's jurisdiction. We weren't asked when these harbor regulations were amended, I think, in, was it 11 or 14, somewhere around there. We weren't asked, I double checked to apply on this. You know, I think it's quite likely that folks looked at what was in place, said we could do better. Find him on board, and folks want to work collaboratively, right? And you know, nobody wants to be in a position of saying, I don't think you should do this. I think it's my sole authority or otherwise. So, and when I look through the harbor regulations, a lot of the requirements are pretty standard. I mean, you know, they're not so far afield of what other communities have in terms of moorings and harbor master's ability to regulate capital vessels. do the hard work. And just, I think folks, I'm not a voter, and you all are, but, our general understanding of the territorial jurisdiction of the town is about 3 miles off of the shore, unless you get into, an area that's covered by another
Mhm.
entity. So at the end of the day, any questions or concerns or challenges to more permit issuances, in my opinion, are appropriately brought to the DEP. And it seems that there are, two different avenues, right? The individual agrees, they don't like it, they didn't get the mooring permit. Or there, as I read the regulation, there's a broader avenue too for folks who just, have questions about, overall assignments of moorings, local officials can bring that forward. But at the end of the day, it makes sense why that is the case, right? Because it's taking, bringing it to the state agency without the local interests coming into play, and they look at these issues all across the state. And so they're able to sort of say, well, we think this is okay, we don't think this is okay. So that's sort of the big picture, that I was initially brought in to sort of answer those questions. Is there another question that you want me to answer now,
Well,
Lily, or?
Even while DEP, it seems like is the adjudicatory board on those types of issues, I think. Through the effort of being transparent and having an open discussion here, you don't have to tell us what is right or wrong, but you can help us kind of talk through one of the main concerns that's been brought to our attention is that the state law or state regulations require that when new moorings are made available, that there's to be filled by written procedure through a wait list. And what's unique about this situation is that we're dealing with commercial moorings that were now converted to multiple anchor with a float or vessel and a new spot being created. And I think for all of you going through this and trying to apply the letter of the law or reg to this situation is not black and white. It's very, especially this unique circumstance, the law or reg doesn't give us a ton of clarity on that, but we did have some discussion about that. Could you talk about it?
So initially, when Greg Butterfield was here, we talked about what was being proposed for the temporary provisional, all moorings that Vine would do or temporary, they're annual, so the provisional program. And the program as it was described to me made sense so we got the state regulations that say basically have to have a waiting list, have to be distributed in a fair and equitable manner, have to be applied for annually. We are talking mostly recreational moorings. But there is room within the state regulations for other parameters that the harbor master deems are appropriate, right? And the regulations even identify some of those, such as the size of the vessel, whether it's commercial or recreational, and the like. There's some hard lines, like you can't transfer within certain, mooring to someone else, distributed family or something like that. But so we go back and we look at the regulations, and they are detailed in some way. In particular with respect to the installation of permanent structures, but they're less detailed in other ways. And that's with respect to how you construct the waiting list, how you administer the waiting list, and what are the overall permissible parameters for to define in terms of how you administer the list. So when the issue first came to me, of course, we looked at, well, what is fair enough, right? What is fair and equitable? And by the time that I got involved in the discussion, it had gotten to the point where there was this, and I don't know if it's a consensus or whatnot, but it seemed that everybody was on the same page about taking folks off the waiting list as being the way that we needed to administer it. And there's different provisions in the regulations that, for years folks have looked at and said, well, maybe none of these rules apply to marinas. And the Inspector General has said, well, we don't think that's how you should interpret the regulations, but DEP has never changed those regulations. So I go back to,
DEP's the one that, if there is sort of any valid, like, I can't adjudicate it, you can't adjudicate it, it would have to be for DEP to say. What happened with those 10, and I'm not even sure if it's correct to call them new, I mean, these 10 additional spots, right? They would be the ultimate deciders as to whether that was improper or not. I thought it met the straight face test. It seemed, especially by that point, they were going to be given off of the wait list, and there was efforts to go through the wait list. It seemed like it was fair and made sense in a unusual situation. We did try on multiple occasions to get with DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers to see if they had ever opined, or would they opine on the issue of whether there were any limits that, Marina could charge for that the tender use or whatever the extra services are provided, and, unsurprisingly, couldn't get an answer. So that's, does that answer your question?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it does. Couple of observations. So really, so far as this body is concerned, the select board, our most powerful tool is we hire the harbor master. And after that, the harbor master you hire is really promulgating the DEP requirements. We've got some regs. I don't think we put a whole, we won't have a lot of input into regs. Is that correct? That's largely driven by
These ones,
the, yes.
right? I don't want you to think we have the authority to do other
No,
regulations.
no, but just the town's regs, that's the Harbor Advisory Committee, what
Or
role does
input
that
and
play?
advice, if they're right, so let me just add one additional thing, I'm sorry, I'm going back 2 minutes.
You get paid by them.
It's everything I love to talk. When I go home, I will not speak to my family, I'm talking. One of the things that is also important to keep in mind is that there's a state law that does allow towns to adopt bylaws that I would say could fill whatever the gap is you want in waterways regulations that's beyond the harbor master authority, but it's by bylaw, it has to be approved both by the Attorney General, like all of the general bylaws, but also the Director of Law Enforcement of the Department of Fisheries and, it's the law. And I've done that on occasion, for example, regulating jet skis in one of the harbors, one of the times I work with. And that statute, as I looked at it, seems to have changed over the years, where it, in the first instance, talked about local regulation, saying you can have your own local regulations, right? As long as it doesn't conflict with state law with regards to numbering of vessels and those things that state law would take precedence. And when I looked at it for this, it did appear to me that over the years that statute had changed to require it to be by bylaw. And so when we look at, I went through and sort of looked at Rockport and Newburyport and all sort of the other places where they may have tried to do similar things. And I am sure that there are some harbor regulations and mooring regulations out there that were a collaborative effort, that were not issued under the sole authority of the harbor master. But if we were asked to opine on those issues, right, this is what we would say, that if it's moorings, if it's within the statutory authority of the harbor master, and that's the authority to accommodate the regulation. Obviously, input and collaboration is probably the goal all the way around, not just with elected and appointed board committee members, but stakeholders as well. And to the extent that there's items beyond that, I should use the jet ski example. If you wanted to do that, it would have to be by bylaw. So there may be, there can be room, right, for additional regulation beyond what the harbor master does, but then we just match it all up with the state laws, make sure it doesn't conflict with the state law, we check with, whatever check on maybe one license are out there in your harbor.
Okay, hopefully you went over 3 minutes. Not a problem. Not a problem. So at this point, I'll solicit comments from the general public.
Would you take a comments from the board first?
From the board first?
That is our usual practice.
Okay. Well, we may do the board and then go out to the public and then. All right.
I would like,
board members.
yes,
Yes.
I'm not Madam Chairman at the moment. I hesitate to disagree with our town council, but I do. And I have no interest in talking about the provisional mooring program. I haven't studied it. There may or may not be problems with it. But what I am immediately concerned with is the issuance of 10 new mooring permits to Manchester Marine. And our water rates regulations say, when a mooring location becomes available, the harbor master offers the location to the first applicant on the change list, provided the vessel is suitable for the location. And boats will be assigned to a mooring based on parameters such as lake draft beam. And that is the way mooring permits are supposed to be issued, from a waiting list. And the reason that that is important is, or part of it is, that in the DEP regulations, 310 CMR 97.2, annual permits for moorings, floats, and rafts, it says, section A, the harbor master or other local official shall provide a written procedure for the fair and equitable assignment from a waiting list for the use of vacant or new moorings. That strikes me as being quite clear. It also involves Chapter 91, Section 10A, which reaffirms that, at least according to the state description of that it reaffirms that towns are, harbor masters must follow the section. Oh, come on. Anyway, the CMR, CMR 972, which is the one that says that they will follow a written procedure that is fair and equitable. We did not follow a written procedure in assigning the new moorings. I have no problem, no question that the float and the 4.5 moorings are an improvement to the harbor. What I contest is that the new locations that were given mooring permits should have gone to people on the change list and on the wait list if the change list can. There are also regulations in our regulations, we have discussion of bow and stern moorings, which say, among other things, that bow and stern moorings may include a permitted float shared by 2 mooring holders. That is to say, both sides have to have mooring permits. And reassignment of these spots will be from the mooring wait list only. The discussion of commercial, our regulations describe commercial moorings as belonging to basically people who work on the water. We should not confuse commercial moorings, which are for fishermen, professional fishermen, and the moorings, the yard moorings that are given to the boat yards. The practice that we have had is when a private mooring permit holder converts a mooring to bow and stern with a float, the second side of the float goes to another current permit holder using his or her existing permit. A permit for bow and stern anchored floats does not give the original permit holder the right to invite a friend to share the float unless the friend currently has a mooring permit in Manchester. Why should Manchester Marine be given mooring permits on both sides of the float when a private mooring permit holder is not? Manchester Marine built and paid for the new floats. That again is true of all of the existing owners. And they have found some way to adjudicate who pays for what. The willingness and ability to build floats and install moorings does not grant any entity the right to a mooring. That is why I brought this up.
Other comments from the board? At this point.
So first, I'd like to say that this conversation didn't come haphazardly. There's been hundreds of hours spent on research on this by multiple people, many of them in this room. I think our harbor regulations are a great guideline, but I don't necessarily think they cover every possible thing that can happen. And I believe this is one of those situations. I think there's no, everybody agrees that the situation's made the harbor more safe, more navigable. The town has got a better income from these. These are all, the boatyards are paying 40 feet, which is the maximum on a mooring. And I honestly feel we do not have the ability to pull these back a chapter 91 permit. I don't think it's there. I think it's up to the DEP. People, if this was a situation where a brand new mooring in the field was made, I would agree 100% with what Ian's saying right now. But it's not. It's room that they made through going to a bow and stern system. And they're actually taking up, even with a boat, a float, and another boat, they're taking up less space now than they did originally. So, I don't see a path. Well, first of all, I want to say that commercial in a waterway is not just fishermen. People who work at marinas, there's people who drive pilings, there's all kinds of commerce that goes on in water. And I think that obviously a marina is part of that. So these are commercial moorings. And I don't see, after looking at this whole situation, I personally don't see a path to having a commercial mooring tied to a recreational mooring. I wish that wasn't the case, but that's the way I personally see it. And I feel that it's up to the DEP to make a decision like this. I don't think it's in our hands. One more comment I'd like to make is that in looking at this whole thing, I really feel that the harbor master is working in the best interest of the harbor.
Thank you, Jack. Brian?
To that point, I think we can all agree that the harbor is in much better shape now than it was before Ryan got there. And it's going to be the economic engine that drives this town. And to Michelle's point, the regs can be vague or they can be rock solid. And I believe that we as a board have to rely on the people we put in place to interpret these rules. And I think Ryan's done a great job in interpreting the rules and regs as they are set forth. And I think we as a town owe him a gratitude for everything he's done. And I think that short of anything else, I think we'll continue this path. We'll look at the provisional moorings, but to relitigate the past is I think is this attempted dragging things through the mud. And I'm not prepared to do that at this point. I'm satisfied with what I've heard. Your recommendations were, what I've heard from you, and Jeff's comments. I'm good. I think that, again, thank you, Byron, for everything you've done. Keith.
Any thoughts, Kat?
Questions? More questions, okay?
I expect. Nothing less than.
Questions. There you go. I won't disappoint you. How's that? First of all, I would also like to say that complete confidence in the team. Okay, if any mistakes are made, I view it as interpreting language, talking past each other, whatever it is. I've seen no evidence whatsoever of anything unethical in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so I'm going to start with that. I have questions up for Anne asked for this specific topic to be on the agenda. And I have questions for Anne and for Michelle. So number one, Anne, you said
that, you brought this, you asked for this to be on the agenda because the additional moorings that resulted from the creation of the floats, there were 10 new ones. It sounded like these 10 additional moorings did not have unique permits, or do they have unique?
They have unique permits.
They do have unique permits,
Yes,
and
and those are new permits.
they are new permits. Right?
So understand that there are 10 locations, just as there were 10 before. With the floats, it created 2 spots.
Right.
So in fact, there would be 10 new permits if in fact there were going to be 10 new.
So I'm just trying to make this real simple.
Yeah.
As a voter, I have a mooring. In my tax,
Mhm.
blah, 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 I get a little sticker. Says mooring permit.
Mhm.
Slap it on the mooring. Those 10 floats, do we have 20 stickers or do we have 10 stickers?
We have, well, because all 20 of those spots,
Okay.
all 20 of those spots weren't assigned for seasonal use. Some are transient. And some are for service.
So that's what is confusing me. And I don't care about any of the rest of the stuff we talked about, quite frankly. I'm trying to figure out what inventory is. Okay,
So
because that gets to the gist. I think we need to all agree on that before
it's,
I have any opinion on anything. And I do not know, it sounds like not every, I think a mooring is a ball or whatever. The white ball that's in the ocean, okay? I thought everyone had to have a unique sticker.
so
Apparently that's not the case with
every
boats.
vessel in the harbor,
I didn't ask about the vessels. I asked about the ball in
we
the,
don't do it that way.
okay,
We don't put stickers on balls.
okay, what do
We
you
put
do?
stickers on the vessels, the mooring holder. Or the person assigned to a mooring gets the sticker. The sticker goes on the boat. And more important, the number of the sticker matches the
Mooring number.
assignment. And it's also matches in.
Okay, so the mooring sticker goes on the boat.
I guess, so this number right here.
Yeah.
This posted list that's downstairs and on the website, this number. Right here will match the number on the sticker. And the number that's painted on. the
Painted on the
mooring.
mooring, I'm sorry, I said sticker.
So-
Okay, got it.
Before, when I started here, it was different. The sticker number and mooring number did not match.
But today, I'm just trying to talk
Today we
about
do it
today.
this way.
So somebody has a permit,
Mhm.
it's a sticker, they put it on their boat and it had better match
Right.
the location on, that they moored. So on those floats, are there 2 different numbers?
Yes, one
each
for each
location?
side,
One for each side,
yes.
okay. So 2 different permits or one permit for the float?
So Manchester Marine pays.
I'm not asking Manchester
Or
Marine, I'm
all?
asking generally. I did not ask, I'm
All
asking
right, so-
generally, please, so I can get to.
So we're lumping commercial and recreational together.
Well, we'll also talk about the definition of commercial, okay? But right now, I'm just trying to
We're
figure out
talking
our inventory.
commercial and recreational
Okay.
inventory, each side. If there's a vessel there, is required to have its own sticker number.
So in theory, I'm just gonna borrow
So because, so to the number 12, there were 10 moorings, there's now 20 spots,
Mhm.
12 of which have vessels on them. Right, so those 12 have numbers. Is that what you're saying?
Every vessel in the harbor
I understand,
has a number, whether it's on one side of the float, other side of the float,
I understand,
or a single.
I understand. What I'm trying to understand is where are the numbers for the 8 things, I'll call them things, that don't have a boat on them? Do we have numbers for those?
Never
things?
were, because they're service moorings or transient moorings. We do not assign numbers to
See,
transient
so-
vessels.
Now I'm gonna ask
We do
Michelle.
not assign the
Yeah.
numbers
Got it,
to a vessel that's coming in for up to 2 weeks.
I understand what you're saying.
Leave. So those 8 spots are paid for by Manchester Marine. They have to pay because they get to use it, just like when they had a single point mooring.
Right.
No boat assigned to it,
Understand.
but they had to pay for the spot.
Okay, but so what you're saying though, you're treating those spots as though Manchester Marine owns them. Or rents
They're-
them.
Correct.
So Michelle, here's my issue, okay? I used to deal with inventories in warehouses, okay? So get parts in, put the parts in the boxes and the slots. Boxes were numbered, so I know what parts to put in what box, okay? If the box was empty, okay, it had no parts in it, still had a number on it. So I knew how many boxes there were. What I'm hearing is, and this is actually an epiphany for me tonight, okay? We have 20 spots, but they don't seem to have a number.
Absolutely, they do.
Okay, I tried to ask the question, you know, okay, I'm not understanding, in another type of a world, we might, those 20 spots would have 20 numbers. And then if a boat was assigned to one of the spots, they would get a sticker with the number of the spot that they were assigned.
I
You
think,
know, parking spot. you know,
If they were,
parking
if
spot.
they were recreational, they would.
Right, so I'm, a parking spot is a better analogy. You go on Spot Hero and they tell you, hey, you got this spot right here, you know, and you go park it, you find the number, you go parking that spot. But what you're saying is a commercial vehicle, commercial vessel, or commercial spot.
So the
does not
spots that they rent. I'm wrong, correct? Spots that they rent out, all those boats get a sticker, just like
Mhm.
everybody else in the harbor.
Mhm.
The other side of that float
the rental.
is either transient or for service work.
Right.
So that's like, you go to your
Right.
mechanic,
I
you
get it.
pull in, he fixes your boat and you leave. It's not, so, but that other side of that float still has a number
Yep.
that Manchester Marine pays for. But it doesn't coincide with a boat because they're going to go.
Okay, fair. So the question is, of the 20 spots, are we renewing? We have designated some for Manchester Marine. Is that the issue that we have? I guess I'm trying to understand, it sounded like the additional 10 moorings. I'm trying to rephrase the question that Ann brought up. Sounded like there was concern that some of the spots, the new spots that were filled were not filled off the wait list. They were handed to Manchester. I may not be saying that right.
That is my concern, is that those new permits were given to Manchester Marine, which was not on any wait list.
So if Manchester Marine had had their name on the wait list, you know, 5 additional times, and we got them off the wait list and gave them 5 spots, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Assuming that the things were taken off the wait list in order of application.
Okay. So because they were never put on the wait, that they never put themselves on the wait list, they weren't taken off the wait list. We have those spots assigned to them. That's the concern. I'm asking, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to clarify.
Every person who has the Manchester Marine warrants on the wait list, you will go through the entire wait list. Exhausted it, and find 8 people who are interested in the waiting list. Other people then, at a later point, went to Manchester Marine and said, I'd like to get one of those spots. Manchester Marine said, we can't give it to you because it must come from the wait list. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, sorry.
This is where the conversation gets a little confusing. And that's why I broke it into 2 separate
Mhm.
categories, right? What Brian's talking about is how we filled
Right.
the seasonal uses of Manchester.
I'm not
Marine.
even yet. Yeah.
But prior to that, what Ann is referring to
Right.
is the 10 additional things,
Right.
spots.
Yep.
Were provided to Manchester Marine. It didn't go through a wait list process.
Right. I'm still
Michelle,
on this piece. Yeah.
Okay, what Michelle was. To your question.
Yeah.
A second ago, was that because they weren't on the wait list. What Michelle's saying is that because these are existing commercial moorings that were then converted
Mhm.
due to the project. They stayed with Manchester Marine. But yes, 10 new items were created or made possible because of that conversion.
Correct. Understand that. So because the original spots, the original 10 spots were designated as commercial? Were they designated as commercial?
They just read it. No,
It-
but
it kind of like the.
the town has a specific definition of a commercial mooring, which is that it is a mooring that belongs to a commercial fisherman. In our regulations.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see that number one, but even if it is, I think there's quite that. Your, you know,
Marinas have them too.
statutory
No, we're,
authorities to the harbor master. I mean,
Okay.
therefore to the commissioners.
so I don't want to get into
Okay.
part because I haven't done the research that I need to do, but I believe that our regulations do. There is a separate section for commercial moorings.
Well, okay, you were looking for, explanation, not really a. Right, so that, I think to your question, for 10 new spots or stickers or numbers created by this, the answer is yes. I don't think we are gonna decide whether the process of that, of how they got to Manchester Marine was
But
correct.
it's, my question, I was trying to get to the point where, and I think my question was answered, it sounds like we all agree though, of the 10 additional spots, they were allocated to, I'll use the term allocated, to Manchester Marine because the underlying assumption is that they were commercial and therefore that, I'm trying to understand the underlying assumption that allowed us to give those spots to Manchester.
Fine.
I think people should think about moorings, and locations carefully. If you have a mooring, you have swings on it, that's your mooring. If you have a bow and stern float inside a shore, so we're talking recreational, the other side is recreational. Jeff is correct. Can't mix commercial and recreational. Manchester Marine is a commercial entity, just like the fishermen. Designated in the database 12 years. All these moorings have been designated as commercial. And so are the 2 yacht clubs. The commercial fishermen, they were not required to partner up with another commercial fisherman. That's the mooring. They were required to go bow and stern. They wanted to put in a float, they could. And then if they wanted to have a second vessel that they use for the fisheries, once they paid the fee, then it was perfectly legitimate. Commercial moorings should not be mixed with recreational moorings. These commercial moorings take up one spot, just like they have since the 1940s. One spot in the harbor. You could put just the boat in there, bow and stern. Or you could float in there. And then they have a second spot, which they can rent, transient, service. But the location is exactly the same. There's no more, there's no gain,
Well,
except for the town.
I guess, well, the only disagreement I have with that statement is, you know, again, I think it's really, I view it as 2 locations instead of 1. I understand, like, it's all terminology, but you've got, I'll call them spots, okay? You have one location, and due to how it was created back in the day, you had 1 spot. You could introduce some innovation, added a float, and now in the 1 location, you have 2 spots, okay? And the question is, you know, they were assigned, those new spots were assigned to the care, they were being cared and fed, by Manchester Marine. And is the fact that we didn't take people off the wait list, is that problematic? Is that, I think that's where that's at right now.
All right, well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, that's my thought, that was.
I think that would be a question for
Just one more, which I written down. In the pre-10 CMR 907, in the first paragraph, it says, two things. Town or city implementing 310 CMR 907 will not discriminate against any citizen of the Commonwealth on the basis of residency, race, religion, sex, age, disability, or other illegal distinction. The provisions of CMR, of 310 CMR 907 shall be enforced by local officials.
And if you,
And I,
that is like my interpretation, but.
Absolutely.
Well, because the whole of, if you start at the very beginning of 907.
Mhm.
And if you look back at chapter 91, 10A and 10C, it says the harbor master, or if there is no harbor master, the local officials authorized to act basically, and
So
so.
to that point, that's correct.
Exactly, the local official. It doesn't, I don't read 907, that part that.
That's, I read that, that's exactly how I read it, just as the police chief is the local official, the fire chief. All right, we've given them that responsibility. And at this point, I don't believe that micromanaging is helping anything here. And that, you know, to be honest with everyone, 80% of the people here in Manchester don't care. They don't have votes, okay? 20% of the people that do have votes, I would say 99% of them don't care. They've got their, I mean, if we have, how many complaints or issues have we had over the last 12 years since you've been? Okay, I think that we're beating a dead horse here. We'd like to move forward as opposed to litigate, continue to litigate the past.
Sorry,
Okay, that's,
excuse me, like you could check, I'm getting some text messages that people cannot hear us well. So I didn't know if they're.
I'm not going to say that.
Thank you, I saw this.
all of this really came to pass because of what Michelle mentioned earlier, that you put together regs and they can't contemplate every possibility. And she said that when it came to structures and dealing with waterways, it was pretty clear in terms of what the DEP wanted. When it was moorings, it was a little soft. Our mooring, our regs did not contemplate this situation. They just did not.
Oh,
It was-
we have regulations for two-sided floats.
Yeah, but we don't have regulations associated with when two sides get created by a commercial entity. And the other side, they would like to rent out. There's nothing that really addressed that. And it put Bion in a position where, all right, and I'm sure he gets in that position probably every week. There's something where there's a little gray, there's nothing that is specific in the regs that says, this is what I gotta do. And that's why he gets paid the big bucks. He's got to make decisions on what's going to happen. And in this situation, this is what made sense. And he looked at it and said, what's going to happen here, right? We're going to have more boats in the harbor. More people are going to be happy because there are people that have boats that now can put them in the harbor. The harbor is now safe because the water is fine. I see no harm, no foul anywhere here. And retroactively, he did have to go through the wait list, but the wait list was provided with us, and you could not come up with enough people that were higher up on the wait list. So Manchester Marine said, put the other people at the end. And then, of course, all of the other people had a shot at it. And I mean, I see the list of names here, and a lot of them were at the end because they signed up. And so they were formally on the wait list, not within the 1 year period, but we did waive that.
The wait list is for a mooring permit, not for the ability to sign up with Manchester Marine to rent space.
I disagree with that.
I didn't agree.
That's not.
Select board.
But then we decided that that's what we did
What I
with
was
the
trying to
provisional
do.
mooring program.
So I-
We
I-
used the wait, we asked that they use the wait list so that the people who are on the wait list have an opportunity to get those spaces. Those spaces are being rented for, depending on the size of the boat, $8,000 or $9,000. Our permits, which are some considerable value, are a tenth of that. So our wait list is for people who want permits that they can get from the town. And we used it to select people who wanted to rent moorings, and of course it went straight through a long way because Manchester Marine was asking for a great deal of money. It's a different thing.
It is, but they're commercial moorings. They aren't.
This was the
Agreed.
one
We
that-
really need to look at the town regulations about what is a commercial, I don't have it in.
I would agree that there needs to be.
And I would third that. A lot of what has happened, a lot of what has transpired depends on a certain assumption as to what the words commercial, mooring means. And I think getting that definition clearer would be
We should
incredibly
work from the
helpful.
document that we have.
Right, yes, I'm not
Not-
suggesting we have to change anything. To your point, I haven't seen it and don't know it.
It doesn't meet all of the, our
If
needs.
the
Doesn't meet all
document's
the
not
criteria.
valid, then there's no sense referring to it. We have to find out if the document's valid, and from what I'm hearing, it probably isn't.
Well, I think I would say that
Parts of it.
initially, as I understand the history of how these set of regulations came to in being. First off, I think they were taken from in other states as a model,
That's
so that's
similar.
something that we would look at. And, again, we all want to work collaboratively, right? Like, I don't think anybody wants to be in a position of saying, well, I'm king here and I don't care what anybody else says. So I have no doubt that there can be collaboration to come up with a set of harbor regulations that respects the harbor master statutory authority, DEP's statutory and regulatory authority. And I think it's 100% that where questions arise, that's where we look to say, okay, now let's clarify. Let's see if we can have a guiding set of whether they're guidelines, whether they, have the stamp of the imprimatur of the harbor master, that the harbor advisory committee and the select board are all on board with. Like, we want everybody to have something that they can look to and say, we all agree with what's, but lawyers will tell you, you can never write something to take advantage of, to account for every eventuality, right? And this, to me, is exactly one of those things that came up, and we're like, well, what makes sense?
I agree with you 100%. I think we're at that point. And so to me, the task at hand is to refine the regulation. Number one, clarify the definitions that we do have and refine the regulations so they are, number one, easier to use, easier to understand, okay, for the layperson, and are meaningful, right? And if we've identified some gaps, we should fill the gaps and not just, kick the can.
So I believe one of the tasks and Carl can talk to this maybe, is that the Harbor Advisory Committee is going to look at mooring regulations this winter, right?
Yep, this is coming up for this winter. We have had one meeting since the summer. Other than 100,000 phone calls, we've had the one meeting, and we will do that over the winter, which has been explained in some detail to the people who are interested.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I recommend that process begin with KP Law taking a look at our existing regulations and maybe providing some sort of review and guidance?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So they're gonna look at it one way.
Well, and I generally like to be involved earlier rather than later, because I hate for folks to spend a lot of their volunteer hours working on something, only to have the lawyer say, oh, you can't do that. Or that, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to make work for myself.
I think it's important you get in early.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, are there questions out here? Name and address, please, Jim.
Yes, my name is Jim Starkey, 13 Hucks Point Road. I think most of you know me, so I'll skip the longer introduction. This is actually a very simple question that you're facing. There's a lot of obfuscation, but when you pull off the obfuscation, it's very simple. Let's go back to the very basics. First, this is about mooring permits. What is a mooring permit? A mooring permit by state law is a license to moor one boat for up to a calendar year in a spot to be designated by a harbor master and with tackle specified by the harbor master. That's all that it is. It is no more, it is no less. It gives nobody proprietary rights to bottom of our harbor. Now, state law is based on what's called the doctrine of public. Oh, forever, yeah, right. That says that the sea bottom is not something you can own, that it belongs to the public. And Chapter 91 of state law designates to the DEP the right to manage, the obligation to manage waterways. Chapter 91, so it's DEP who makes the rules. The DEP rule is extremely simple, and that is that a harbor master is required to issue mooring permits from a written procedure. There's no wiggle room. There's no wiggle room here at all. The harbor master is required to issue mooring permits from a written procedure, and we have a written procedure, which are waterway regulations, and they have absolutely no provision for wiggle room or for giving out mooring permits to your friends. They don't let you put mooring permits on eBay. They have to go by a written procedure. And there is nothing in our procedure that assigns mooring permits to Manchester Marine. Nothing. So this is open and closed. Mooring spots, locations has nothing to do with it. It's just obfuscation. Nothing to do with it. The argument that we're making it better by having, double anchored floats, that well may be true, but it's irrelevant. Manchester Marine has 12 mooring permits. They can make 5 double anchored floats if they wish, or if they're designated by the harbor master if they have to. That makes room for 5 other double-ended floats that people on the change list and on the waiting list should be invited.
We got 5 minutes. We went 4. Right?
Are you going for
Change.
3?
Okay, there's
Sorry,
3.
the meeting.
All right. We'll say 4 minutes.
There was 3.
All right, then that's time. Thank you very much.
Okay, we may come back to you, Jim. Let's see what other folks have to
Can I
say.
ask a short question?
Yeah.
To Jim's point. So we have, the harbor master has to assign a mooring with a written procedure. But that doesn't say it's our written procedure. These were assigned through a DEP written procedure. Is that correct?
Well, I think in this instance, DEP was aware of what was going on. I don't think they were following a particular written procedure of DEP. But they were involved throughout the process. And I don't know whether I would say that they gave approval, but they certainly gave tacit approval. When I look at the March 27th, 2024 letter from DEP, it certainly does not raise any questions about how those extra spots are going to be assigned or provide any implication or express direction to the harbor master that these are supposed to be assigned, to recreational boaters off of the existing waiting list. I agree with everyone that there's a provision in the state regulations that talks about assigning things off of a waiting list. But again, I don't think that whether it's our regulations or state law or state regulations, they're not always going to cover every single event. And that's why we're here, right? So, it isn't, in my view, and DEP is the one that is the final arbiter on this. But in my view, DEP was well aware of this. They understood what was going on and did not identify any concerns with how Bayou was handling it. So again, to the transparency and the above board and everything else like that, I mean, it's all been part of the process. We can sit here in time now and say maybe the decision should have been handled differently. But at the end of the day, you get to, well, then what does that mean moving forward, right? I think we're still in the same spot we are right now. It's like, we've got to clean up our regulations and we've got to be clearer and we've got to try to avoid this type of scenario in the future.
The challenge I have with that is if these 10 new spots or 12 were not gonna be used for seasonal use, or, meet the definition of a mooring permit, and they were just going to be transient or service, issuing them to Manchester Marine would not even be a topic of discussion, because that type of use does not require the process of a
A 10A, a
written,
10A permit.
right. Once the town, well, sorry,
All right, continue.
I guess once the town okayed or joined in the idea of allowing seasonal use, it developed a written procedure through the provisional mooring program. Which, that's where I think the challenge is gonna be is, does that satisfy the law that now these are meet the definition of a mooring because they're seasonal, and it's following a written procedure that the town.
My guess, and again, my guess, because there isn't a whole lot out there to guide me from DEP decisions. Most of them deal with individual mooring permit applicants who are upset or otherwise by a decision of harbor master. But from what I reviewed, I tend to think that they're gonna look for rational basis, no sort of underhanded dealings. And we could try, I don't know if we get an answer, but we could try to, involve DEP in, engage them and looking at what you folks come up with in terms of language is how to address this moving forward. I mean, I don't know that they necessarily want to give advisory opinions, but, it's certainly worth the effort to try to engage them, because as I said earlier, and you all are familiar, I think, with Inspector General, different investigations over the years, that including, I think, one here, but they tend to deal with, they were all different factual situations. The only commonality is this opinion from the IG as to how to interpret the provisions of state regulations that they have no authority to actually interpret. It's DEP. So at the end of the day, they're the ones that we, should ask if we're
Yes.
uncomfortable.
Is it safe to say that Mr. Starkey's opinion is just his interpretation of the law, and that there could be various interpretations of that same law? And that, and then we'll look for, as you and the HAC start to draft these new regs, we take his interpretation as part of the basis of writing the new or updated regulations. But at this point, it's just that, it's an opinion.
Well, we certainly would want to clarify,
Right.
right, in moving forward. Again, DEP is the one that can decide.
Exactly.
Right? You could,
What I'm-
I could
what
have
I'm
my
hearing here
opinion,
is an interpretation.
and other people can have different opinions. I'm just trying to give you my opinion based on my best research and analysis. But at the end of the day, this is, to some degree, there's a level of policy making that's going on here that is also not, that's not my role.
And
I would like to. It's not. When Manchester Marine was using the single point, they had a permit for each of those, even though they were used temporarily. When they put in the floats, they got a permit for each side. It's not that they were, since they're using them as yard moorings, they don't have to have permits, or there's no fluff in that. It's just a question of who gets a permit.
Well, I guess to Mr. Starkey's point, if the letter of the law says that a mooring must be assigned through a written procedure, and a mooring is defined as up to 1 year of use. If this wasn't for that type of use, if it was for transient or service, then referring to the written procedure wouldn't apply. So in other words, if.
They did, in fact, have a permit for each of those.
Right, so in other words, if if Manchester Marine still had 10 single point moorings that they've always had. And they came to the town and said, we'd like to use one or two of these for seasonal use. And came to the town for that approval. Would then Manchester Marine lose those and it would have to go to the wait list to find out who gets those seasonal, or Manchester Marine would be asking for approval to sublet their spot. That's where I get, when we refer to it has to go for the wait list, that only gets triggered once you're talking about the use being seasonal.
So I think to get what
You know
you're,
what I'm saying?
yes, because what you're getting at really though is that those original moorings, they've always been treated as commercial because for recreational people, if you don't use your mooring, you get booted. You're not allowed to keep an empty mooring, right? So what you're saying is the history and the prerequisite is telling us that the original moorings were treated as commercial. And these new ones have a new wrinkle to it, but there's been an assumption they should also be commercial.
I would ask DEP if other communities allow marinas to rent their spots for seasonal use and what the procedure is that they require for
I think
that.
you gotta be careful with the definition of marina. though.
Well, you know, this example in other towns, because it's not, the written procedure assignment doesn't get triggered until the use changes. So when this originally came in through the project proposal, it was just.
Like I said, though, I think
the
it
use didn't
starts,
come until the floats got
it
installed.
seems to start with an assumption that everything we've been talking about is commercial, when there's differing opinions as to whether or not that's really true.
All right.
I have one question, then I'll give it to Bion. Is Manchester Marine paying for 20? 22, and they're using 12. Okay, so it's in their best interest if they're sitting vacant to recoup some of their monies by going with a seasonal or transient. It makes business sense. So from a commercial standpoint, it makes sense. All right, and that's all I've got.
Mine's really just an observation that these moorings have been in place, to the best of my ability to discover, since the 1940s. Up until 2010, 11, there were zero restrictions on how those moorings were used. Those commercial moorings were used any way they wanted. When that regulation change happened, unless I'm terribly mistaken in the information I received, no boat yards were consulted, asked, invited into the discussion when the decision was made that they couldn't rent those seasonally. When we get into our next meeting, I'll express an opinion why. You'll hear. But the regulations in 2009 that this town had in place, zero mention of commercial moorings. The town has been collecting revenue from those yards for those commercial moorings since fees were first set in this town.
Okay.
So there's a long established history that these are commercial moorings, not recreational.
Okay, other comments from the public or online? Mr. Starkey, will recognize you last 3 minutes.
I am shocked that our town council is advising the town that they do not have to follow state law. She should be ashamed of herself. Chapter 99.07 of the DEP regulations say the provisions of 310 CMR 9.07 shall be enforced by local officials. That's you guys. That's you guys. DEP regulations say you have the responsibility to ensure that
That's your-
things are done according to DEP regulations. And they are not being done by DEP regulations. There is no way, the right way to do this, if you want to do it, is to come back and say, well, we want to give Manchester Marine some more moorings, let's go amend our rules, and that can be debated in public. The wrong way to do it is just to go ahead and do it and say, well, the rules don't matter, there's wiggle room, everyone does it, everyone doesn't do it. Law is law, madam. You should be ashamed.
I am not ashamed. I have always.
Okay,
Out of order, sir.
Where's the gavel?
no need for personal accosting here. Any other comments here?
I have one.
Yes, Jeff?
Although we're only covering boatyard moorings tonight, we owe it to the harbor master and the community to address all the accusations against him. It's been way too long and it's time to settle this once and for all. I'd like to make a motion to call a special meeting between the Harbor Advisory Committee and the Select Board to discuss accusations made by one resident against the harbor master and provide information gathered to date to provide information gathered, a date to be set by the town administrator.
Second.
Further discussion here?
Yes, for what purpose? What would the outcome be?
To cover all the other allegations against the harbor master. As far as other moorings that have been given away, as far
Again,
as,
to what end? I'm just trying to understand, seriously, just trying to understand, like, what would be an outcome? What
the
would be-
outcome would be to either clear the harbor master or to find if there's problems to address.
So you're saying like a courtroom type procedure?
Is this winding through the Inspector General's office right now?
Yep.
One issue. One. Just the one we're discussing.
Okay, well, this is winding through the Inspector General's office. Okay, so I don't know that our convening a meeting is going to make a whole lot of sense until we hear what the Inspector General has to say.
Well, I
I
guess
think it makes sense to cover the allegations that have been made against the harbor master in public, on social media, in public meetings. I think we need to address that. The people of town want to know, are there problems? Is the harbor master acting incorrectly? And I think we owe it to the community to have that discussion.
So I don't disagree with that. I'm just questioning the timing like John is, because if the DEP is doing some investigation or they're looking into something, do we want to get ahead of that? I don't feel qualified to do that personally.
Honestly, I think the Inspector General is investigating just the Manchester Marine moorings that we're
Okay,
discussing tonight.
okay.
So
So I guess my other question would be, according to Michelle, do we have jurisdiction here? Where do we have jurisdiction to make any decisions about anything?
So
That if we, I mean, if this is just an airing of the, the allegations and evidence presented, I guess I'm fine with that, but to what end? What's the purpose? It's gonna make
Hopefully
it-
that is the end. That is the
I
purpose.
don't see that happening truthfully, but go ahead, Michelle.
I was just gonna say, I mean, you are the appointing authority for the harbor master. So if
So-
there's complaints and allegations against him.
Okay,
Pardon me?
I think the town administrator.
I thought,
But this bylaw says that the select board appoints the. Harbor master. Special
I
act
think
would
you should
trump the
create-
bylaw.
But we approve it, but I don't think we're appointing.
Okay, but either way, I mean, I think that there is always the opportunity if the select board wants to have a discussion. I mean. You know, whether it's.
I think it's
executive
incumbent
or open
upon this
session.
board to clear the air about any town employee, all right? Allegations made against any town employee or town council should be addressed. And I think the proper forum would be, as Jeff suggested, from my perspective, I think I owe you an apology for not stepping up sooner. Okay, I think we all owe you an apology. You have been the whipping boy for quite some time now. And I think that to that point, we should clear the air once and for all. If there are allegations beyond the moorings, and I can't even buy you a cup of coffee. If there are other allegations, they should be addressed, and then we can put this to bed. That's just my feeling, to his point.
And so I might suggest that first there's a conversation between Tony and Brian. Because, you know, we do like to respect the desires of the person about whom, right, the complaints are made, and so I would at least want there to be some sort of discussion as to whether that's something that.
Yeah, I think it's too early for that. I'm open to that. I just feel we need to get our ducks in a row here a little more personally. I would like Tony to have a conversation with Bion offline and as manager to employee and see what would be helpful here personally.
I'd like to have the harbor master's opinion.
Yes, certainly.
I was down about a year and a half. That the initial accusation about Manchester moorings were placed. And there's been a cascade of other accusations over that year and a half. And I have not had an opportunity to have those accusations aired, to address them, to speak to them in a public forum. And I would welcome that happening at the very earliest convenience.
Okay, thank you. Carl,
Brian's been in town for about 13 years. I was part of the committee to elect him. I don't know the numbers, but he's brought a lot of money into the town, into the harbor to completely redo it. It's helped our revenue. It's been a great thing. We have a harbor master who goes to the town meetings, helps people out, get a seat, speaks as needed for the budget. He's got a lot of bad press. The people we're talking about said he has done something illegal. That is defamation of character, and this has been going on for a year and a half. There are other things that have been said against him. And I'm sorry, Kathy, but you said we have to wait a while. No, we don't. This has been going on for over a year and a half. It's in social media. It's talked about around town. You know, Bonnie goes down and makes pizzas for people towards the end of the year. He does everything for everybody. He helps people out. His you know, ability to do things up and down the East Coast, it's fantastic. But when I hear you say we need more time, he has been under the gun for a long time. I have not, and I've been to a few committees. I'm a young guy in town here. I've been to a few committees, especially for harbor, and there have been issues. And every time there's an issue, it adds to the pile. I don't want that pile getting higher. I want something to be done tonight with the people that are causing the problem. I don't want to have more meetings where we have things going on like you have going on here tonight. That's not the way to run a town meeting. These people should not be let to do things that they have done, and I'll keep going on and on harangue. I'm gonna quit here softly, quickly. But don't say we need more time. The time has come to put a cork in the bottle. Thank you.
Amen. Other,
There's a motion.
okay, so there's a motion.
A second.
A second.
And there's a second. Okay, any further discussion on?
One, yes, if we're going to have such a meeting, I still think we need to have some clarity and boundaries as to the conduct at the meeting and what we're gonna do other than listen to Bion. And I'm happy to listen, you know, I've listened to you multiple times, right? And you have had opportunity to comment at public meetings here. You have more to say, great. I still would like some structure to that meeting. If we are going to have, is that okay,
Yeah,
Jeff? It can't be a free-for-all.
No, I absolutely 100% agree with you, because
That's what I'm.
some of these meetings, I've been to, I think, every harbor advisory committee over the last year and a half, if I missed one maybe. And I can tell you, it's been a complete disaster.
Right.
And things have happened that it should have not happened.
So before I take a vote on this motion, who is going to structure this meeting and who is going to facilitate it?
Uh,
And I think it should be someone completely objective.
Well, first of all, I would suggest that it's not a public hearing. It would be a meeting of the select board and the harbor advisory committee.
Yep.
And I think as town administrator, it's my job to investigate the performance of our
Agree.
employees.
I agree.
So I would think the structure would be simply me collecting the accusations that have supposedly been made.
Yep.
Me investigating them and then reporting on them to the select board and the harbor advisory committee.
This would be an executive session.
No, this would be.
No,
a-
no.
It
So
doesn't have any of the requirements.
So the structure of this is really gonna kind of come out of your discuss, you have to sit down with Bion. And discuss this, put it together. I mean, we rely on you for a structure for how this meeting might fit together. Because there are accusations going in all directions and, you know, this is kind of a little bit of fact finding. It's a little bit of everything.
It'll take some time.
Yes.
I will try and move quickly.
What do you-
But
So-
we'll
What do you
use
have
it
for a
to be
date in mind, Jeff?
To be figured out at a later date, you said.
By the end of the year?
Yeah, I'm not gonna leave it up to you. You're gonna head this up and you can do the investigation. And whenever you feel you've comfortably come to a conclusion, we can set a meeting. And you and Brian can work together and whatever.
So that makes a lot of sense. Good structure. How does Bion have a voice at that? So I'm still asking a few more questions. Sorry. So you present the results to both the board and the committee. Then is Bion invited to speak? Is somebody else invited? Or are you just going to present the results and the two committees deliberate? How do you,
To be determined.
to be determined?
To be
Okay, so a
determined.
little more. So
Yeah.
again, the reason for my questions is not to invite delay. So I want to make that real clear. My reason for my questions is to make sure that when we do this, we do it right and we do it once.
Understood.
Okay? Okay,
Understood.
just to be clear on that.
Can we put a framework around this of say 3 months?
You know?
Let Tony think about it.
Think about that.
You know what? Let's let Tony decide here.
We'll let him try to make the decision because.
All
he
right,
knows what's in his.
all right. So the motion on the floor, you read it again, Jeff?
I'm glad, I don't think he can.
If I could read, I wouldn't be doing this. Make a motion to call a special meeting between the Harbor Advisory Committee and the Select Board to discuss accusations made by one resident against the harbor master and to provide information gathered. A date to be set by the town administrator.
Friendly amendment?
Yep.
To resolve. Not discuss accusations. To resolve. This is
To,
gonna be a one and done, right?
I
to,
hope so.
I certainly hope so, yes.
Just if you can tighten that up a bit.
Okay.
We have to get onto dogs on the beach.
To discuss and resolve accusations
There you go.
made against the harbor master.
Okay, good. And there was a second on that?
Yes, I second that.
All right. Any further discussion?
No,
Vote Jeff,
yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
And
Yes.
John says yes. Okay. Paul's in your court. Okay. Now, from the discussion that we've had in the past hour and a half, we've got to decide a little bit how things are going to sit together. We've heard a lot of information about the moorings associated with Manchester Marine. Do you have a recommendation, Tony, in terms of how things should fit together?
My recommendation wouldn't be to take action here tonight other than to get, possibly to get input from DEP. Or at least seek input from DEP. Whether we get it or not is an unknown. And leave it the way that it is right now. And once we have that, I think at some point we do, have to revisit the provisional mooring program and make sure that it gets added into the regs appropriately, or if there's any tweaks to that, if we are to continue with it, right? But in the meantime, I think getting some input from DEP.
Does that fold into Carl's initiative, which is when, the first of the year or sooner?
I think we'd start soon.
I'd like sooner. Okay. Because it sounds like there are a lot of unforeseen murky areas that really need to be defined in that.
Well, is it
So-
fair to say we may want these, at least some of the refinements completed before the next season?
Yes,
Is that fair
you know your timeline.
timeline? Okay.
So I was just gonna suggest, right, the two things that seem to be most critical are the provisional mooring, right? A framework for it if it's gonna continue, and clarifying if the rules are different for commercial, how you define commercial. Those are the things that I've heard.
Well,
Is-
the third one is, we know that there are sections of our regulations
Correct,
that
correct.
are subject to way too much interpretation. They need to be tightened up.
Yeah.
But identify, like, I'm sort of thinking like in terms of triaging, and I think, the Harbor Advisory Committee certainly can probably identify some of those, but I think before next season, you definitely
Oh,
want to
yeah.
get those pieces.
All right,
And mooring assignments and so on begin early
in the year.
in the year. So-
Right, when do they have to have their applications in by?
Well, so we send out renewal forms in December. Which is very early because they're not required to be paid until March 1st.
But I think, am I correct that they have to submit them to you by March 15th?
It's March 1st.
March 1st.
March 1st. We have that's the date to avoid a penalty. March 31st is the hard cutoff date.
And they're rolling.
Okay,
Right, there is the existing provisional mooring program does talk about some sort of notice from the boatyard by December 31st.
Right, so that's for rates for the coming
yeah,
season.
So
not.
that's irrelevant, I guess that's. Okay. So I don't have a recommendation for a motion of the board based on council's opinion that there really isn't a motion to be made. And if you want to make a motion to seek
I hope that
opinion
we
from
seek an
DEP.
opinion from DEP on the assignment of 10 new mooring permits to Manchester Marine.
I think that's reasonable. I'm not sure what, as Michelle has said. Get from those guys. Okay, you got a motion?
What year we'll get it.
But in absence of that. we
It ain't gonna be
continue
by
with-
the end of this year.
In absence of a decision from.
Yeah.
DEP will continue the.
That's correct.
course we're on.
That's correct. So who pursues that? Do you pursue that, or,
Yeah,
mean,
between the three of us.
yeah.
One of us
Okay,
will
all right.
reach out to DEP.
all right, and so that's your motion?
That's my
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
A second on that?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Jeff,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ann,
Yes,
and yes. Okay,
excellent.
am I done?
You're done.
Thank you,
Give
John.
Give it back.
Thank you for your-
Give it back.
We won't see the dogs on the beach, because that's always a hot topic.
We don't actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
I got 2 weeks ago, things that, Whole Foods and Swan, so I gotta pick up stuff. If you really been on me, I'm happy to stay.
No,
All
I didn't.
right. Right. Thank you, folks. Oh, you know what? I really appreciate that. That's good.
Thank you for your presence, Michelle.
Thank you, folks, and sure be seeing you all,
Yes.
talking to us.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
You.
thanks.
Andy's running out, my friend.
His question, what he got into.
Wait, these folks look also, they look so stressed.
I'm left with the uniforms.
Well, I'll never get that. Cold.
Next item on our agenda is quarterly reports from the police chief, even the town administrator. I think I'm going to start with the town administrator, at least briefly, to ask why the employees who report to him are.
That's a good question. It seems like it's been somewhat of the practice here, over the last X amount of years that Greg's been here. And so I actually perform the quarterly reviews with each of the chiefs myself. And I said, why don't I can summarize it, and then they're here if you have any questions or comments or compliments for them. But I would agree. I think that, you know, the quarterly review element doesn't need to be a part of a select board meeting. I think it's my role to be performing those quarterly, and I can report to you the results of those if you'd like, but I don't think going forward it needs to be a public process like this.
You guys stuck around for nothing.
Am I wrong? It seemed like it's been the practice.
Yeah.
That's good.
I agree with you. I think there were some specific reasons for that no longer apply. What I would say, slight alteration of the sequence. Typically, what you would want to do is solicit input from a variety of sources, including the board, to perform the reviews. So instead of not just reporting out afterwards, but also soliciting input in advance.
Okay.
Nevertheless, I do appreciate the monthly or quarterly reports.
Maybe we can still do that.
Oh,
Yes, I mean, the written
Love that.
reports that they provide to us are extremely
that's
helpful.
very good.
Because it helps us answer questions that we.
I want to applaud Chief Fitzgerald for making full use of AI now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember your writing from 3 years ago.
It's improved dramatically.
So I performed quarterly reviews with both chiefs. I can say, you know, across the board, both chiefs are exemplary employees. Unfortunately, during my quarterly review with Chief Fitzgerald, he handed me his official notice of retirement at the end of this fiscal year. I tried to rip it up, but in my short, 3 months so far here as town administrator, both of the chiefs have embraced me and have immediately met every expectation that I would have of a police chief or a fire chief, in that the way that they manage their staff, the way that they manage their budget, the way that they communicate internally and externally, upward and downward, is all exactly where one would want it to be starting in a new position as town administrator. They both clearly have strong commitments to this town and to their positions. They understand the importance of every facet of their job, but that it goes beyond just being a police officer or being a firefighter. It goes beyond just being a manager of a department. It's a complex process of integrating all of those things and being a representative of the community and really exemplifying the goals in which that you, the select board, have of us as, employees of the town. Specifically to Chief Fitzgerald, we spoke about parking enforcement. This year, parking enforcement is extremely successful. It reflected a improvement because of added parking enforcement personnel, resulted in over 1,400 tickets.
Ron, how many of those were yours?
Close to $70,000 in fines, and majority of them stemming from the most common violations, such as overtime parking or parking in restricted or prohibited areas. This, and the chief can speak more in detail to that, but this is a reflection of a priority that I believe the town made as far as putting an emphasis on the economy of our downtown and making sure that these parking, specifically to downtown, making sure that these parking spots are being turned over and enforced properly so that our downtown can thrive. Of course, it goes beyond just downtown, with beach parking and parking in other areas. But I think it shows how your department head took a priority of the town, created a plan, and rolled it out effectively. The summer harbor patrol season was highly successful. Thanks largely in part to Sergeant Newton, who coordinated patrol efforts and ensured strong coverage during the busiest times. Again, another key element, I believe, of the town is to ensure that that the enforcement on the harbor is done effectively. And we are working on the implementation of Blue Voice, which is an AI platform that actually Maya is providing a grant for us in order to purchase this software that allows for our police officers to ask, any sort of law or regulation or enforcement issue on the spot. And in today's environment it's really important, that we're able to provide that service effectively, and you have to adjust to how people respond to that enforcement. So that was an initiative by the police department that is taking a lead step on adjusting to current environment. And then budget and staffing. The police department has had a tough year as far as staffing goes, with a lot of many of our employees or police officers out on extended leave. So it will be reflected in our overtime numbers when we get to the end of the year, I'm sure. But I think it's the way that the chief has effectively approached that issue. We haven't missed a step. And in fact, when we have run into some of the hardest issues, both the chief and the lieutenant have filled into those spots to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of personnel on the road at any given time. So it's been a very, when you're dealing with personnel issues, staffing and budget, that can be a struggle all in and of itself. And I believe the chief has managed that very effectively and to the best of his capability. So, and then of course, all sorts of trainings and things of that nature. So I'll pause there. If you guys have any questions or comments related to the chief and the police department.
Everybody's looking at me because I always have something to say. Funny, you noted the things I had down, Tony, so I noted, obviously, Todd, I really appreciate the increased parking enforcement. It was very noticeable walking around the downtown, even up School Street, Pine Street, that whole area, so that was very much appreciated. And we always, sometime in the fall, we always have a conversation about parking, what can we do differently next year? And we have a couple of things we still need to talk about, whether it's beach parking or the boating placards, we said we gotta kind of take another look at that. So when we get into those details, I look forward to, hearing what you have to say on that. But the downtown parking, enforcement was very noticeable and appreciated. I still love the regional focus and partnerships that you have developed there and are continuing to work. So that's incredibly critical. And I definitely continue to be impressed by your willingness to learn something new. So the AI stuff is great. But I hope I don't get to see many of your team members, except for Mark. So I just hope that culture of continuous learning is really getting embedded in your culture, because, as Tony just said, there's more to learn and there's too much to learn, and we all have to just try and find ways of doing that.
That AI, Blue Voice was actually brought to it by Zach Johnson.
Nice, awesome, great.
He's the one that's ball roll.
Right, because you could, you know, be dealing with somebody and they've got AI on their little phone and they're,
Yeah.
that's not the law, and you can say, yes, it is, right, so.
A closed loop system, so we take our policies, the procedures, we
Perfect.
take our master laws,
Yep.
town bylaws, whatever we wanna put in there.
Awesome,
Maps of all school
Not
buildings.
schools, anything.
excellent,
And, so it's not like out on the World Wide Web.
right, awesome,
Yeah.
that's great. No, the continuous learning is really, and so I'm glad to hear that came from an officer, and that's more evidence, so,
You should get all the credit for that. Break that.
excellent, thank you.
So I just had a question on the parking. Did you have any breakout between what the revenue was from Styx versus the folks that were walking around?
So the Sticks issued 603 tickets and 30,151.
30K,
Yeah.
and so,
Seven and a half.
so it's about half?
A little less than.
A little less than that.
Okay, so that's good. I did see Central Streets down. I guess you're parking somewhere else because.
The clerk did cash my check. So yes, you might have had, I contributed to that $50 to that bottom
Okay.
line.
All right. Great.
I would like to commend the police department on the move toward a community policing model. It has changed. I've been around a long time.
Yeah.
But it's much better now than I remember. Thank you.
To that point, and I've said this every time we've got together, is that I believe that this, all three public safety, Byron's not here right now, is a model that every other community would want to follow, a small town community. It's phenomenal and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, machine right now.
And I can say 29 years I've been here, this is the best group I've ever worked with Bion, Todd and Jake.
You guys obviously
We work very well
together,
together.
so.
And I'll even throw Chuck in there as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I mean, all departments are running in the right department, the right direction. And without fail, we'll lean on each other when they need something. And it's gonna make 20's job easier anyway. Because you got other shit you gotta deal with anyway. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know, other than Jake's driving record, we're all. I got more.
All right, so thank you, Chief, and thank you for all your years of dedicated service to the town.
Was a tough decision, and actually my son and wife wanted to be here tonight just to show us support for the letter that I did give you, but they decided they'd be online. So
I got it.
I'm sure if Greg was here right now, he would be able to talk about the 12 years of experience that he has had and, you know, speak to all of your accomplishments and your growth and your impact on the community and the department. And I've, you know, in just a short 3 months, I've seen it, it's very clear. So even though it's only 3 months that we've worked together, thank you for
I appreciate that.
making my life easier and for all that you've done for the town.
It's not up to it yet.
No. You got a ways to go.
I wanna thank you because you made my life a lot easier too. Yeah.
And then just lastly, as you mentioned, we've, and both chiefs and lieutenants and many of the staff have been involved in those regional discussions as far as emergency management goes, regional 911, and a ton of training efforts that each of you have put forward to your staff. So thank you. So on to the fire department. I've met with Chief McNeely as well. Over the first 3 months, I'm not gonna repeat everything that I've said already, but as well has been dealing with a lot of different challenges in the fire department. I think the chiefs, one of the things that I have identified with Chief McNeely is the ability to improvise. He's been, a lot of challenges have been put forward, especially with the structure of the facility there. And he's been able to find ways to get things done quickly and efficiently, and to the, betterment to the budget, for the town. Both of the chiefs, and sorry, I didn't mention it when I was speaking about the police department, but, both of the chiefs have, also I've been involved in, many different public events, that the departments have put on. So again, it's that community involvement and availability that they promote that I think is reflective of a lot of our priorities. The chief has worked hard to fill our call fire department, our call firefighter roster, and continues to work on that. And I think his style, his style as a department head, I think is what, folks in the community that are either thinking about becoming a call fireman or even potential full-time firemen from other departments gravitate towards. So that it's a really helpful element for us as far as retaining talent or potentially recruiting talent. He's kept me apprised on the engines, the ladder truck, when I first got here, wasn't here yet. But worked really quickly to, not only get the engine back to Manchester, but also effectively dealing with the company that we bought it from to make sure that the town was not negatively impacted financially. And a lot of, like I said, a lot of pre-planning, trainings, and community building type activity that he's emphasized, at least, or I've seen in just 3 short months. So anything to add, Chief?
No, it takes a team, and I think Todd would agree with me that our team is what makes us shine. It's not one of us individually, it's everyone that we have that work for us and work with us. And collectively, it makes it work. And it makes my job easier. I can call Todd in the middle of the night if I had to, and it would be like, what are you calling me? If I don't care what I do now. And that's important. And I think that's really the catalyst behind the success of the public safety.
Just one comment that I remind you guys that Sunday is a Cottonwood Road Race. Jake, I might suggest you not get involved with that, given your record.
We do have the open house on Saturday.
What day is that? What time?
3 to 7
What's that, 3 to 7?
on Saturday. Yep.
On Saturday.
Saturday.
Okay, my kids are here, so I know.
Are you participating in the cardboard boat race?
Yes.
Maybe you'll like to add is we were very successful with the AFG and FEMA grants that you guys are aware of. And we're going through that process and kind of.
Where are you on the process of a deputy?
That is April 1.
Have you
It was
started-
budgeted last year.
Yeah, I understand that part. Have you identified or have you started a search?
Yeah, so we work with Tony, the job description was designed, developed, just so anybody in-house, they needed a couple of the certs, they had some reaction time.
Mhm.
The official posting will be in January with an April 7th.
Oh, great.
Any other?
Don't take my suggesting that your quarterly reviews go through Tony as a suggestion that I don't love your monthly reports.
Same all.
Hotspots are always fun.
Yeah, just a couple things. I really love the monthly reports. In fact, one of the things I really love about the monthly report is the heat map. And I was curious, is there any way we can get a heat map from, like, I don't know what input you use to generate it.
Just emergency calls,
And
locations.
I'm curious as to that. I think that would be very helpful for some of the facilities decisions we have to make, right? The police, they're all over the place, they're patrolling, blah, blah, blah. The harbor, where are our harbor emergencies, out in the water? Is it a way to do a heat map on in the harbor and identify where the hot spots are. And so I just think it's a really good tool. Well, Sand Dollar Cove, but no, there may be some other things that we can talk about. It's just a really good tool.
Yeah, I mean, I think regional dispatch would actually be able to weigh in, especially with
Yeah.
most of those calls coming by a 911 that are
Right.
tracked by that line. So they
Yeah.
would be able to at least give us that, we could put that into,
Right.
use AI to create our.
There you go. So like, yeah, like where are they? And when the people who are injured come off the harbor, where do they go? You know, does the ambulance pick them up downtown? Do they pick them up at Tux? Do they pick them up at, Masco? Where do they pick them up? So I think a lot of that data is gonna be helpful as we make some facilities choices. So I would throw that out there. And then, just on the staffing, the grant, that was a great, whole, again, to our conversation, it's a very helpful thing as to overstaff a little bit as we transition. There are some planned retirements that are probably coming up, right? And so we just want.
Yeah, so the
be
grant
mindful of that.
requires to maintain
21.
21 FTEs for the 3-year performance period.
Mhm.
However, with some of those things that are going on, we'll have some wiggle room, but we need to do our due diligence to maintain 21 from March of.
Right.
26th of March.
Mhm, mhm. Right, but we don't want to overstaff permanently, is the message. It's a nice find for a specific reason.
That's how many, 21?
21.
It's a lot.
Exactly.
We were on
So it's not a
17,
permanent
and
thing.
then 21 would give us, 4 would be working all the time. So it meets the kind of the requirement we always talked about, as well as increased, I don't want to say it 2 and 2, as well as, increased hazards that are going to be coming in with some of our commercial properties.
Right, so it's a standard, not a requirement. Standard, not a requirement. And the other thing, data, because data helps us make good decisions. It is important for us and our residents to understand, that a lot of not a lot, but there are a certain number of emergencies do not arise from the behavior of the Manchester residents, right? You have a highway that you respond to accidents, right? I think as we think about how we want to use the data that's available, understanding, where the incidents are coming from, and I'm always questioning, are we subsidizing our neighbors, right? We maintain the ambulances, we maintain a very full staff where other towns of our size have completely called, firefighting forces. So we always have to answer those questions, and I think you do a great job of collecting data and, how can we take that to the next level? Because I think we're gonna need to.
When's that second ambulance?
Should be January, February, we should have it. I mean, just in the last 3 weeks alone, we missed out, like, there's 4 or 5 transports that we missed, that we know of, in town, that we had to wait for somebody else to come in. So actually, if you take the last 30 days, we've received more mutual aid, than we've
That's
given.
good. But it's not because our teams are out helping somebody else, it was just because there are too many.
Multiple calls. Simultaneously, I mean,
Right.
we'll do 3 calls in 30 minutes and go
Right.
14 hours without one. So it
So
doesn't.
it's like, it's during the budgeting process, finance is gonna ask these questions, and it's just, how do we get ahead of it by using the data that's available?
Can
I
you,
mean, I think it's a good, the 3 years will give us a good data and
Right.
data set of what we have now, because we have good data from that.
Yep.
What changes we made, what revenues we brought in. I think we'll have a good picture using the next 3 years as a kind of a focus point. Hope.
That's
My
the plan,
opinion.
that's the plan.
Is the intention to have 2 fully functional ambulances with advanced life support?
Yeah, so we have the equipment already. However, the ambulance that was surplus prior to me getting here blew an engine, and I think the cost benefit of fixing it, I believe, I'm not sure how that ended up. So right now, we can handle 1 medical, but that second one, we can still initiate care, we just can't transport, therefore we're not having a return on our, we can't build it.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Good.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So as far as my quarterly report goes, I don't have, the statistics or heat maps. That
Oh,
come
you
with-
will.
I probably could make one up. But I will say, over the first 3 months, it's been extremely enjoyable, extremely welcoming. I've spent a lot of time, meeting with residents, stakeholders, staff, volunteers. I still have more to do. But I do think that the time has come where I need to peel back on some of that and do more of, the office work, so to speak. Right now, I find myself trying to catch up on that office work because I'm in, some days it's back-to-back meetings. But it's been, I can't say enough how welcoming everyone has been, and willing to help and work with me. But in the first 3 months, we experienced the Republican union strike. We've.
Republic, not Republican, let's.
Public union strike. We're still dealing with that now as far as the invoices that we've received and how we're going to approach our response to that. Working with Chuck and legal counsel, and that will roll into a larger discussion about how we're gonna move forward because our contract with Republic expires at the end of this fiscal year. We've had ongoing efforts with the Central Street culvert, Masonic Hall, and working with the senior center or the Friends. Working on the senior center with the Friends of the COA or the COA board. The facility planning group, as Kathy had mentioned, potential development at Gordon College, smaller projects like library grounds and DPW maintenance projects that were already programmed. A lot of personnel tasks, some including trainings, some dealing with the reorg that was voted on prior to me arriving. I've made my first hire with our new land use clerk, Kendall. She will be starting on the 14th next week, so that's very exciting. I was hoping to say that the COA director position was posted at this meeting. It has not been posted yet, but it should be posted this week.
I'll have to explain that to the seniors. then.
I know.
They asked me about that today.
No. Maybe like first thing tomorrow morning.
Fine.
Some union type tasks that I've had to deal with so far, and they're ongoing, but it will lead into some of the collective bargaining units. Their contracts are up at the end of this fiscal year, so we'll be getting into negotiations as well. Health insurance is going to be a large topic associated with that. Attending multiple public events, assisted with the planning for a potential special town meeting, which ultimately didn't occur. And then, this harbor master issue has taken up a lot of my time in the last, 2 or 3 weeks. And moving forward, what I see is, planning of the annual town meeting, CPC applications, union contract negotiations, Ocean Street study, the Republic trash contract. And as I mentioned before, I think I really need to work on, for me, a little self-criticism. I think I want to work with Debbie to reserve, certain times in my calendar, weekly schedule to make sure that I'm being more responsive via email to the emails that are coming in. And I'm happy to take any, feedback. Ways to improve are more valuable to me than compliments of things that have been accomplished so far, so.
I just have a comment. You came here right into the trash strike. You've had a lot on your plate and you hit the ground running and never looked back. I'm very very surprised how you've handled all these situations all jumbled together, but you've done a great job, I think. And it's been a joy to work with you so far, so
Thank you.
thank you.
And to that point, I don't think, there was any downtime in the transition between Greg and yourself.
No.
Because, you know, it's just, Jeff used the term hit the ground running, and I don't, if there was a couple of pieces dropped, you picked them right up, so I think we're good, and I look forward to moving forward.
Yeah, no, you, I 100% agree. You hit the ground running, doing a fantastic job. As we talked about, last week, I don't know what day it is, last week. My only concern is that you're doing too much, right? So it's, you know, when you were in the hunt, you were jack of all trades. We talked about that, you know, when you first came on board, and you are more than ready to scale up. And, but you listen so well. That's your superpower. You really listen very well. And, I encourage you to teach your team to do what you do, right? I was very happy to see that you had that, you know, staff-wide training. Sometimes it doesn't even matter what the subject is, right? You just getting them together to feel like a team and all be on the same page, right? The more you can do that, I think is great, but it is definitely time for you to scale up and figure out those techniques so that you can focus your time on what you need to and let your team show what they can do. You know, a lot of leaders, sometimes they think they're dumping on their team when they assign them something. No, you're preparing them, you're teaching them, you know, so let loose a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Awesome.
I'm glad we chose you.
Yeah.
Me too.
And I'm glad you chose us. It goes both ways. Been great so far.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, nice, I apologize for not voting.
That's
Let it go, Brian, let it go.
So I'm keeping you up at night.
No, haven't lost any people at all, but as long as I'm making me a couple, I'll apologize to everyone. The first step.
I told you privately that I think you walk on water. I may have said something about it not being very deep, but you're doing a terrific job. And you're right, you need to block off some time for yourself and for dealing. It is so much easier to deal with the loud voices in town if they know that they're being heard.
Right.
Because as soon as they think they're not being heard, they start screaming.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Right.
And they go to multiple people,
Yeah,
Right,
and then the problem amplifies,
Right.
yeah.
right.
that will be a good use of your time.
Yeah, I agree. I've been able to accomplish, you know, some of that, but not to the level where it needs to be. So I just gotta reserve time for that. Make sure that that communication is, you know, staying at the level it's supposed to be at. So.
Part of that is working with your directs, you know, even having a conversation with them about what do they expect? You know, what's expected, or have we shared with the residents expectations? For example, if you send me an email and it's not time sensitive, I'll get back to you in 3 days or a week, whatever, right? In my old company, we used to have, my peers and I, we had a rule we all agreed to. If, you know, obviously this CEO or your boss, you know, sends you something, you jump, right? But if it's a peer, we respond within 48 hours, you know, so we had our own rules, so that expectations were set, because a lot of times people think email is going to get an immediate response, and it's not. It was never designed for that. It was designed to broadcast communication. So just talking with your team even about the rules of engagement, because if you have a certain set of rules or timeframes, you know, you want to get back to residents within a week or whatever it is, if your team members have similar rules, or at least you all know what the rules are, it can help, I think, a little bit too.
Yeah. I will say, I found, you know, some of the constituent services and residents reaching out because of an issue. The opportunities that I've had to meet with them face to face or pick up the phone and talk to them about the issue has proven, as I expected, to be way more impactful. And it's just a matter of like organizing your time to make sure you can accomplish that. But even, I'll give the example of Landmark School. Our ability as a team to respond to that effectively, quickly, and have an instant impact the next day after it was brought up here was extremely impressive. And that goes to the team, that's all about the team, so. And honestly, a lot of the if you want to call success that I've had in the 3 months that I've been here is due to the staff that we have here and my ability to go to them and say, I got this thing that just came across by, my computer. What's the history on this? Can you just shoot me an email real quick on that so I can maybe give an answer on it? Or can we think about doing it a little bit differently? And everybody has responded to that exactly how you would want to. So a lot of the credit, goes to the support staff, the staff that is supporting me. So thank you.
Our next item is the Board of Registrars appointment. You've certainly given us plenty of information on that.
Yeah, so the process to fill a vacancy is laid out by statute. So as soon as we were identified or notified that there was a vacancy, we send a letter to the chair of the Republican Town Committee and the Democratic Town Committee and request that they submit nominations to us within a 45-day period. Republican Town Committee submitted a nomination to us, Mr. Byron Wynn, within the 45-day period. The Democratic Town Committee their nominations came in after the 45-day period. And for that reason, I believe that the action here would be for us to appoint Byron Wynn for the 3-year term. And the statute does talk about that term length. It's a 3-year term that goes for our bylaws says July 1st to June 30th. So this is kind of a backdated appointment, but that's because of the term stipulated by the bylaw.
For a motion,
Mm-hmm.
move the select board appoint Byron Wynn to the Board of Registers for a term to expire on June 30th, 2028.
Second. Jeff.
Yes.
All right, Brian.
Brian.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you. I can see that by usual.
Yes.
Kathy, yes, and yes,
John, yes.
excellent. Okay, liaison updates.
Let's see, relatively quiet month here, or like a couple of weeks. DPW, Beach Street's going, and in fact, that was one of the issues that Tony wrestled with because there was some comment from some local citizens, as you're probably aware. But he sat down with him and I think all is fine. And Mill Street is teed up to go and there's already some comments on that as well. We're all aware, but that should happen within the next couple of weeks, so. Council on Aging, seniors seem to be, it's just the usual stuff. I will say that we're making a van available for the Manchester Club. This coming Thursday. So that people who need a van ride for any reason, and we're not judging any of that in Manchester, they will pick it up. And Jack, who is one of the regular drivers, in fact, I think he may even be a member of the Manchester Club. I don't know.
No, he's actually, I had this long conversation.
I don't know.
No, he threw out his tickets a long time ago.
Okay.
And he's trying to get back in.
Was that right? Well,
I think that also, if that works, I would really like to expand that to also Legion dinner as well.
this is the plan because that's an off-hour time. that's 6 to 8.
Right.
Vans will never run in 6 to 8, but this is what we're trying to do, trying to get the local vans to work in different hours because CADA can work 9 to 3, so we'll see how that goes. And
As we just keep in mind, as we expand that opportunity, we do have to use a town driver to
Yeah.
drive the van. And we do pay them an hourly rate. So as we expand those hours, it will have a financial impact.
So we'll see how that goes, but we really want to trade off the hours. And well, that's a conversation.
That could be a way to.
That's the angle to do, because Kata would be covering those at other time slot anyway. And nothing, the Historic District Commission meets Thursday. I know that things are changing a little bit at Cargo. We'll just see what they've got another design now. I think the economics weren't working for the first one. Now that I hear they want to do 3 buildings, so they may be on the agenda. We'll see what happens. And nothing on the line.
No, the demo's been put on hold because no rush.
It's on hold because I think they're looking at going from 2 units to 3 units.
Well, there was, I think there was a design that was 2 units or 3 units plus a little retail space there. That's their design.
Well, below they
So
want,
we'll see what they come up with.
we'll see what happens.
But because of that, as many people are driving around with their beach chairs in the back of the car waiting to watch the demo, they're gonna call them all off.
Right.
That was gonna be a big event. It's bigger
Oh,
than,
that's
bigger than the parade.
yes. That would be
It was originally scheduled for
October, this
early
month.
September. Actually,
September?
they were gonna do it first week of September, I think.
I think actually, I think Jake told us that they were going to, the fire department was gonna use that for some training before they took it,
Good idea.
Excellent.
so, and talking with Adam, there's no rush at this point to tear it down.
No. Yeah, Adam's your source. Yeah, good source.
Random question, will there be a breakfast this coming Monday? Not today, but a week from today.
A breakfast, what, seniors?
Yeah.
No, because it is a holiday. That's it for me.
Oh, so on Bike and Ped, they were mentioning, I guess there's a safe and accessible streets policy that is dated 2016. They're going to, it's frequently referenced in grant applications. So they were considering taking a review of it since it's so old and making recommendations, Tony, to you or to Chuck on any refinements. I'm not sure quite who owns responsibility for that policy.
Is it, what's safe and?
It's safe and accessible streets policy.
Okay.
So yeah, and apparently it's important because it is referenced when we apply for grants. So Sue might be aware of it. I just wanted to mention that. I've been working with Jody Morris from Friends of Trees on reviewing the tree policy, and they would like to recommend us, as a starting point, recommend a small change to our definition of a public tree. But before we bring it before the select board, we'd like to review it with Chuck, and our schedules haven't worked out. So I'm gonna try and get with Chuck this week or next week. Downtown improvement, they did draft a new charge and shared it at their September meeting, but it needs some work. So they're still working it, and hopefully it'll get approved at their October meeting so we can see it in November. And I think that was it for me.
Parks and Rec, again, after school programs up and running very well. Getting ready for the Wobbling Goblins, so grandchild here.
What year, what day is it?
I believe it's the Saturday, usually the Saturday before thing for Halloween. You've seen the consent agenda where they did raise the rates for both the Charter House and beach parking, I believe it is. And again, October 16th is when we want to get in here. That's usually a fun time to come here, see the people, all now you know who's getting married. It's that, trying to get the dates they want for the Charter House, and no, everything else is status quo.
I really don't have anything.
Okay.
We should have something next time we meet, a bunch of things, so.
With the Board of Health, and they voted to extend for another 30 days, the hold off for another 30 days going to court to put the Desmond Avenue into receivership. There is progress being made, and the attorney who handles the housing issues said that while there's progress being made, the judge is unlikely to recommend a receivership, so. We'll see what happens next. I don't know what will come of it, but Mrs. Gates has announced that she is the only person responsible. And at the, I think at the their second meeting in October, they will have an opportunity to talk with her son and their lawyer to see whether there is in fact consensus that she will be the sole worker. To school committee meeting, I know a great deal more about actual learning. Which I will spare you. I'm sure you know a lot of it, Jeff.
Yeah, more than I wanna know, but yeah.
However, the facilities and Michelle, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her last name. They're the finance person gave a quick report. Toward the end of this past year, they were able to put back the $150,000 that they were planning to take out of the OPEB. And that will put them back on a track to meet the requirements of the other convention and retirement benefits. They also anticipate having about $600,000 in E&D. They call it something else, but at the end of the year, which is not an unreasonable amount given the size of their budget.
Yeah.
And indicates that they are budgeting conservatively, but not dangerous. Right.
So that's what, about 10, a little less than 10% of their budget.
Oh, much less than that. Isn't their budget like 30?
Yeah.
32.
30 million. Oh,
So 10% is 3 million, and
Oh, right, yeah.
So
way
Don't
less.
mind me.
Right.
And you're the school committee?
I'm on the finance
that?
committee.
Was I saying,
I'm the vice chair of the policy committee, I'm not on it. That's why they didn't put me on the.
But they
finance
I always just the major ownership.
one of the things that they use to put their budget together for the year that they're currently in was to take money out of the. I'm sorry, I have terrible proper nouns. They have a general reserve, and then they have a separate reserve which they had funded from interest on the borrowing for the Manchester Memorial School. The conditions were such that for the Memorial School, they borrowed the whole amount ahead before they started construction. And that amount was banked and earned interest and gave them a stability fund. And they have had to take significant money out of their stability fund. So yes, I would summarize it as the school budget continues to be a challenge, but it's not quite as dire as it seemed 4 months ago.
Let's revisit this in 4 months and see how it is.
Oh, don't worry, we will be revisiting
Time
this
crunch.
very regularly. They have been put on notice that the town would like them to start their budget earlier this year. And they agree that they will do that to the extent of their ability, but since they're big ticket items, particularly the big ticket item of insurance, is particularly in flux this year. So they don't get those figures until January or February. That.
did I see a note come by I guess it was Wednesday, they're gonna start to talk about the Essex Elementary School.
Oh, they've already got.
Some sort of-
Okay, what's going on with the, I have not really involved myself with the building committee.
I guess it's building.
They've established a building committee. The building committee has chosen an owner's representative. And they are getting organized. The first thing they need to do is figure out where they're gonna put the school. And the next thing, well, probably the first thing they need to do is what they're going to build. Whether they're going to renovate, whether they're going to build a school for fewer grades. Whether they're just gonna move everybody over here. So the meeting on the 8th is
Yeah, I guess it was the,
a presentation to the community of what they have done so far. It's not that this is far from the beginning of what they're doing. But as of yet, as I said, they don't know where it's going to be or what it's going to be. And that's okay. It's, they
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
think about it.
that's the process.
no,
Um, The consent agenda. Is there anything that we need to take out of it?
I was wondering if we could take out just have a separate discussion quickly on the parking increase. Seems like a little bit of a one-off, and I'm not sure why it's not part of just the normal budgeting process.
Singing Beach.
Yeah, I just, because we have other stuff to talk about regarding beaches and enforcement of parking and whether or not there's a cost associated with that. I'm just wondering why, is there a rush? Because it just doesn't get, what's the rush?
You might have more.
What's the rush to implement a $5 increase right now?
30 to
I think
35.
They had,
They had the lottery, right?
for parking in the parking lot. This-
Oh.
I think this,
thought you
they
were
were
talking
looking,
about
they
the
were looking at everything else, across the board as far as, rate increases. The parking, the charter house, and, so that's what, that was the discussion. I think it's always come across about this time of year.
But it seems like a one-off when there's other stuff we have to think about regarding.
Singing Beach.
Well, beaches, like we gotta talk about
But
White
guards.
Beach parking enforcement, is that gonna have a cost to it? Are we treating the beaches the same? If they're not, we're not treating the beaches the same, are they differently?
It doesn't have, I mean, yeah, there's.
That's
there's
resident
no-
only parking,
There's resident parking
Right.
and, the revenue generated from, the White Beach is parking tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that, they're just looking at just setting and cleaning house now that everything's fresh in their mind after coming out of the season.
I think it's a
Okay.
great recommendation. I'm just wondering why.
Right, why don't we remove that one?
Yeah.
And take it as a recommendation, and so that we don't approve it now and then have to undo it.
We can do that. And Cheryl's not here. I mean, she could
Yeah,
comment
I'd
on
like
it.
to- Yeah.
She has a
Seemed
couple
like a
items
little-
here. She also put up
Is
the
it the
chowder house.
only, is it the only location where non-resident parking is allowed and charged for?
Singing Beach.
Same beach.
Yeah.
So it's the non-resident fee that they want to increase.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just the non-resident from 30 to 35 for next season.
Which is probably keeping with local area beaches anyway.
I guess,
You park
look at
anywhere
what
from
Lobsters
35.
drive.
Right, right.
Some of these guys are a little higher than that even.
Not here for the Red Sox game.
You want to get, do you want to have Cheryl come in and talk about that?
I would withdraw my suggestion, if this is just for non-resident parking.
Well, I said increase
He's got a
for
dog in the
residents.
fight
I'm sorry, I'm confused. I'm sorry, the chowder house was the
Yeah.
25. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I read it wrong.
Yeah, sorry about the confusion.
In that case, can we?
Yep.
Can we vote on all of them?
Yep.
Okay. Motion? I move the select board approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
John,
Yes.
Anne says yes, Kathy,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
And Jeff.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
I'm a minute here.
So, well, first, as far for paving project, mill and forest, weather permitting, will structure being removed starts this week. The reclaim project starts the 13th. And that will be a impact to residents of those Mill especially. For about 2 weeks. So we're going to send a mailer to the residents of that roadway to give them this week to let them know. There's been digital message boards already out there. We'll work with the residents there to make sure that they can access in and out of their driveways. But it will, because of the nature of that project, it's a full reclaim. It's a little bit more intensive than just milling and allowing people to drive on a milled roadway. It'll be a pretty significant project. So we'll have it on social media. There'll be door hangers provided by DPW, and we're gonna do a note from Chuck and I to the residents of those 2 roads.
So it'll be close to not residents, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and Chuck is working with the school on the bus schedule and making whatever arrangements need to.
What's the
Sorry,
time?
were you send, sorry, go ahead.
Which is that, the elapsed time? Has Chuck got an elapsed time on that? For the project?
How long? Well, the biggest interruption will be for about 2 weeks.
All right, significant time.
Yeah.
So,
What-
so residents will have access to it, but other residents can't cut across it. Right, just gonna be,
We're gonna detour, for those 2 weeks, we're really gonna detour people around. For residents of that roadway, we'll find ways to get them in and out. And then I know Chuck is working with the school to find out. And then the school's working with the bus company to find out how they wanna manage it, whether we work with a contractor to give them kind of a window in the morning to get through. Or if they want to detour and adjust their schedule based on the detour. We'll have the school notify the residents in that area as to what arrangement they'll figure out regarding the bus.
So this is gonna funnel a lot of people use that road as a cut through,
Yeah.
and it's gonna funnel a lot more traffic down Lincoln Street. Are we gonna need more of a police presence there?
I think
when
we can,
Schools in session.
So I actually received an email from someone I never hear from around the Mill Street issue, and their concern was that that we took down too many trees. Some of the trees that were taken down act as a natural speed reducer. And so apparently there were like 7 something trees, and the tree warden was out, Sequoia or whoever, and only 2 of the trees were diseased, but the DPW said that the other trees had to be removed for paving. And
They're right on top of it.
They're right at the edge of the street and
Right,
the
at the
paving
edge.
machine.
so I think if you're gonna write to the residents, you might try and address the reason why,
yeah,
because they don't get it. And they viewed that as increasing the safety concern because apparently the trees helped people not drive fast. So they think we've created more of a problem because of the nice smooth road
Well,
and,
I can tell you, I don't know how many trees were diseased, but I can tell you, I drive by them at least twice a day, and 2 of them you could see through.
right, that those were the
yeah,
ones.
there were 5,
Yes.
5 were removed, 2 of them were diseased, weren't gonna survive. The other 3 were almost growing through the pavement. The pavement went around them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have survived the reclaim process because of how deep we have to go. And they interfered with the ability of the machinery to even
Yeah.
do the work.
So that's a good reason, and like I said, if you're gonna write a note to the residents anyway, you might consider adding a couple of sentences on
Yeah,
why,
it's-
and that
We can do that.
could just address it.
We can do that, yeah. I spoke to a few residents down there even a month ago, and then now recently. And Chuck's spoken with a few of them as well. The hard part about that roadway is speed, putting traffic calming measures in place that don't interfere with the scenic characteristic of the road. But one of the things we're talking about is as you are coming from 128 and you approach that very narrow bridge over the first culvert, potentially as you approach that, some rumble type strips that they're not bumps, they're actually indents that just rumble you like on the side of a highway.
Yes.
Just to kind of like
Reminder.
remind you, you're coming to a tight area. We don't want to do a ton of signage because of the scenic element. So we're thinking of all that stuff, and I'll try to find a way to
Yeah.
let the residents know. In the backup, I gave you an update on all things related to COA. I won't read through the whole element of it. I did have a conversation with town council on Friday about condo docs. We have received comments from the Masons. Our council's reviewing that. Next step is, I think, is to arrange a meeting with both parties to kind of work through a lot of those items so that we can bring that to close. And then we did receive an updated site plan from the architect. I've sent that over to the Masons. That was an element that needed to be included in the docs. We've shown that to the Friends. We're scheduling a meeting for the 15th with the Friends. So as they take a closer look at it, we can work with them on the interior layout of the potential future design. And we still, our goal is to have a 10% design and cost estimates by mid-December. I also spoke with legal counsel about the issue of it being registered land. They felt that there would be no issue as far as us condoizing on registered land. It may add some process as far as time goes to final closure, but once we sign the agreement, we're essentially reached our markets, just process after that point. Grants, we mentioned grants a little bit during that.
Is the ongoing delay going to affect fundraising?
Yes and no. We've come up with ways to, or we've talked a lot about how can we start making steps towards the fundraising effort, even though we haven't completely closed yet. I think getting the the discussion about the interior layout of the design was a big piece of that, and getting that site plan updated and getting the comments from the Masons on this latest draft was another key piece. So now that we've done those two things, I think we're in a position where the fundraising, well, not us, but the fundraising can start, but really, once the closing of the condo docs will really kickstart the full process. Kinetic provided a public discussion with the Friends, and we're meeting with ECCF, I think, on the 9th, to work out, what their schedule is going to be as far as the fundraising process goes.
That kinetic report goes up on the 8th.
Yes.
See it.
Yep.
That'll be on the COA,
Yep.
somewhere on the COA page. Okay.
So, to grants, I put these on here as notification. I may put these on the agenda next meeting for an official vote to accept. I would just want to double check that that's a requirement. But it's the FEMA staffing and adequate fire and emergency response is $825,374. This is the 3-year matching grant that Chief McNeely spoke about regarding staffing. He also received a FEMA assistance grant for $260,000 with a town match of only $13,000. And this is for new SCBA's, which are have to be replaced because they meet a end of life expiration date. And we also received a Rural Development Fund one-stop grant of $110,000 that the town applied for reviewing the general zoning district, including the downtown area, looking at opportunities for additional housing, climate resilience, enhancing commercial viability of the downtown corridor, to hire a consultant to help with that, and also look at some streetscape design plans, conceptual streetscape design plans. Landmark school parking, we talked about that. It was effective immediately. We saw a positive impact. I do think that now that the pickup drivers have kind of become accustomed to the new setup, we can probably remove the temporary signs from Highland Ave. And if it somehow has a reverse impact, we'll just put them back out again.
Do you know where those cars are going?
Yeah, I'm curious.
I heard, it's closer to the Beverly line. But I'm not positive.
I've seen some cars lined up on the Beverly side,
Mhm.
but not nearly the number that used to be on our side.
They may have adjusted their pickup times or some sort of arrangement within their property.
So they've evaporated.
I don't know. They're not causing us problem.
Not breaking the jail.
At the last select board meeting, we heard about a housing authority open seat. We've only received one candidate and that person has withdrawn their name. So I've reached out to a few folks at the Affordable Housing Trust and on the planning board to see if they know anyone that might be interested in joining. But we haven't gotten any real interest yet. So Tiffany's continuing to post it. I made a suggestion of adding more detail as to what the position entails or as far as its responsibility and its workload. And then also maybe putting a deadline as to, please submit your letter of interest by X date.
John Harden.
There's many other open seats, but that one I wanted to bring up because it did come up at the last meeting. I mentioned the land use clerk and the COA job posting, town administrator goals. My goal was to get those to you by tonight, but a lot of other things got.
Miserably.
Without goals, you can't.
Yeah.
And then on the facilities planning committee, we got a CDM Smith, the contractor for Lincoln Street Well, gave us an update on that proposed project. That was a great discussion that we had. And then we went and visited Newburyport's.
Taj Mahal,
Yeah.
Harbor Master.
Harbor Master facility.
Really?
It was great to see.
To live there as my house.
And then as I've already mentioned, we had meetings with the regional emergency management, and I attended my first joint 911 executive board meeting. And talked about current improvements, capacity with potential additional communities wanting to get in. There's still a lot of discussion to be had on that. And then the Greenbelt Normandy ribbon cutting we attended, which was well attended.
Yeah, it was very well done.
On a somewhat rainy morning, but that was a nice event as well.
On the facilities committee, how you have been attending all of those meetings? Is it your plan to continue to attend all of the meetings?
I hope not.
That was the right answer.
I hope not.
As you're looking for time on your calendar, right?
Yeah.
It was good to go to all the tours so you could see everything, but
Yeah,
now we're gonna be chatting about stuff that,
it's, kind of like training wheels and
Yep.
then let it go.
Let it
So, I'll probably check in from time to time, attend a meeting here or there, but I don't think I need to be at all these meetings.
It's about whatever rhythm you have with Chuck, how is he gonna keep you informed?
Yeah.
On a variety of things that he keeps you informed about, and that's one of them, right?
Yep. Yep, exactly. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye, aye.
Only motion of the day is.
Fine, fine.
That's for the.
9:20, that's pretty good considering.
Considering.
Considering.